Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast with Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I'm joined here, as always, by the man who did not misspell recap in the title for this video. Kyle, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Oh yeah, it is spelled wrong.
Yeah, just realized
right now.
Yeah, I'll fix that. Kyle, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. My team is floundering a little bit here in free agency, but overall, spirits are still high. Still plenty of players left to sign. But there's been a lot of information so far, and there's still plenty of players left to sign.
Yeah, wild offseason. Kyle, I think so much has happened since last week. The Buccaneers have a quarterback. No Blaine Gabbert, no Kyle Trask. We are relevant again.
Yeah. Obviously that was the big news of the week. So like you said, Tom Brady coming back to the NFL, which, it was so funny to read his little post about playing for Tampa Bay next year, where, oh yeah, these last 2 months have been really like thought provoking and all that kind of stuff. Spent some time away from the game. It's like, man, it's been 40 days. Nothing like nobody plays football over these last 40 days too. Like,
right.
I don't think his offseason would have been any different if he didn't retire for 40 days. It would have been
that's a good point. What does he typically do? Is he already like back in the film room like a week later?
Well, he posts those workout videos, and I'm sure based on like the stuff we hear about, he's working out all the time. But I don't know. I guess he had one strawberry this offseason and said, enough of this. I need to get back into football. I don't know. But Tom Brady is back. And, there's a lot of talk of, oh, was this just to kind of get after Schefter for all the Deflategate stuff? Is this just, attention grabbing? I think he looked at it and said this. There's not a lot of teams in the NFC right now. There's not a lot of teams in the NFC South right now. Tom Brady probably looked at this and said, hey, you know what? I think I can win the NFC pretty easily. Let's run this back one more time, and then who knows what happens next offseason. I think that's the simplest explanation for why he's back for another season, is that it's so easy, it seems like, to win the NFC South.
Yeah, we have a super chat. Cool. Zay saying Raiders. Yes, we'll get into them in a second. Yeah, I mean, everyone loves a good conspiracy theory, right? Which, by the way, the conspiracy theories that people will just believe in immediately are just hilarious to me. It just seems like the most likely outcome is Brady decided he didn't want to play anymore, and then after a couple months, like, I still want to play. Actually, I'm going to go back. Like, isn't that it's just like he's changed his mind? Like, that's probably just what happened. These things aren't that complicated.
Yeah, I mean. Probably. Yeah. I mean, he's really like, I'm not done playing football. I think the interesting thing is, I think one of the things I heard too is like, you should never make your decision like 1 week after a season or anything like that. Because as soon as the season ends, nobody really wants to play football because they've just been beating each other up for, 4 months. And so that probably put into it. It's like, he didn't want to play at the time because the season just ended. He's exhausted. And then now he's like, I think I can keep going.
Yeah, we have a super chat. Zachary Stewart saying TB12 retired, so the less motivated Bucks left the team. He came back, only the most motivated, giving him a jolt. Zachary Stewart, again, big fan of the Tom Brady motivates the team meme. Really enjoys it.
Yeah. So I do have a question for you. You obviously well-known Bucks fan here in the chat, well-known Bucks fan channel. The Arian stuff during this. A little weird, right? Like just the comments, the press conferences, the kind of almost backhanded compliments towards Brady during all this. I mean, it sounded kind of like there was some tension towards the end of this thing. Is there a little worry about that now going into the new season, or do you just not care because Tom Brady's back?
I don't care because Tom Brady's back. I mean, that's not even. I mean, Kyle, I'm not exaggerating. Other than winning the Super Bowl, like Tom Brady coming back to the Buccaneers is the best day of watching the Buccaneers. I think this is better than winning the NFC Championship game. I think I'm going to put it up there.
What about Tom Brady first joining the Buccaneers?
This is better because when Brady first joined the Buccaneers, we thought, okay, well, let's see how this plays out, right? Because he was coming off of a down season. He's going to be 43. No one's been successful at 43. So it's like, this is fun. This is exciting, but how is it going to work out? But now we know like Brady's legit. I mean, again, going to be 45. Anything can happen. But this was, and quite frankly, it's just like, oh my God, I don't have to watch Blaine Gabbert and Kyle Trask next year. I can actually like watch a good quarterback, and there's hope all of a sudden.
Well, and then this offseason was just so interesting for Tampa at first because it was like, Brady retires, Ali Marpet retires, and then you're like, okay, who knows with like Kappa, who knows with all these other guys now that Brady's gone, especially the
Mm-hmm.
veterans who are probably looking to just win Super Bowls and compete for Super Bowls. Who knows with all this stuff? And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, you got Godwin back on the tag. You get Carlton Davis back after this too. You do lose Kappa, but at the same time, you get a pretty good offensive guard in Shaq Mason in his place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it seems like they're just going to be, I mean, they're probably first or second in the NFC favorites right now. So, I mean, everything just kind of seems gravy again.
It feels like, at least I think top three. I think the Rams, Packers, and Buccaneers those are the contenders at this point. And yeah, I mean, it's again, we were saying, hey, well, maybe the Buccaneers could squeak into the playoffs because it's a weak division. No one was really taking them seriously. Now it seems like it's almost a given they win the division, although it's not because, for one thing, Deshaun Watson, seemingly the three teams he's considering going to are all the three teams in NFC South. So that's, other than the Buccaneers. So that's interesting. But yeah, and it's not just Brady too. I mean, Brady comes back and then all of a sudden, Carlton Davis resigns. We signed Russell Gage, who I think would really fit that offense well. They go out and obviously get Shaq Mason in a trade. I'm sure we'll talk about more so in a second. It's all of a sudden like at this point, if this team just is what it is right now, we're okay. And that's just not what I was expecting to happen a week ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I really like the Gage signing too. I mean, I think that's pretty shrewd, especially given that like I thought third receiver, especially when Brown had his whole meltdown,
Mm-hmm.
was a problem. I thought it
Yeah.
was a problem. Tyler Johnson, I thought definitely regressed last season. I don't know why. Scotty Miller, it just seemed like more people were paying attention to him, so he couldn't just break open for 45-yard gains randomly
Mm-hmm.
all the time. And so all of a sudden that was gone. And then all of a sudden your offense was basically Gronk, Evans, and Godwin. It seemed like it was coming down to that, plus Fournette in the backfield too. I think Gage is a really nice signing there for that spot. That's a really nice number 3 receiver to have with this team.
Yeah, and Godwin wasn't even available for the
Yeah.
from this last quarter of the season and in the playoffs. So that's another factor. And who knows, maybe Godwin won't be back for the beginning of the regular season. So getting a guy who can at least step in and be a number 2 for a minute before that happens. All of this, it's just exciting time. It's just fun, and I have now not seen Tom Brady's final game, and I'm very happy about it. Feel bad for the guy who spent $500K on Tom Brady's last touchdown pass, only for it to basically be a worthless ball now.
Yeah, I don't feel that bad. He's
I
probably
guess
good
so.
for
If
him.
you have that kind of money to throw around, you're all right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. And then just circling back to, because you mentioned the NFC and the power structure of the NFC.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not as convinced as you are. Like, I think the Rams, I mean, it's early in free agency, but I think the Rams look a little worse than they did this past season. They lost a few guys on their team. Who knows if Beckham's going to come back and if Beckham's even going to be available to play to start the season. So
Mm-hmm.
I still think the Rams are good, but I wouldn't be surprised if right now, I might rate them a tier below Green Bay and Tampa. And then you look at a team like, I think San Francisco is still an excellent football team,
Mm-hmm.
but there's still kind of the unknown of, is Trey Lance actually good? We don't
Right.
actually know that. So, I mean, that could be a huge problem. And then, Kyler Murray wants to get paid basically just because. And I don't know. And that whole situation is weird to me too. So who knows with Arizona? I mean, this might be just kind of for the taking right now.
Yeah, maybe this is the year Daniel Jones breaks out and the Giants will be competitive.
The Sam Darnold's still waiting for that too. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, plenty of, and again, but in all honesty, though, it does happen where randomly guys break out, and then who knows what can happen. There still is a draft, so there's who knows. It's impossible to predict, but it does seem like there could be a bit of an easy situation there. Interesting about the Rams. Maybe we can touch on that in a bit. Kyle, let's use this as a transition. I mentioned Shaq Mason. Patriots offseason moves so far include not signing J.C. Jackson to a relatively reasonable deal and getting rid of Shaq Mason. You're the Patriots guy here. Also, someone saying, is Smith to the Ravens real? Yep, it's real. That happened. We'll touch on that in a bit. Kyle, Patriots, J.C. Jackson, no Shaq Mason. How you feeling?
I'm annoyed.
Mm-hmm.
It's frustrating. This is the Patriot way, though. I think that they have. Listen, if there's we said it with cornerbacks kind of tongue in cheek, but it's true. I mean, if you look at the two positions, like literally the two positions that Belichick has constantly found really good players at,
Mm-hmm.
it's been guard and cornerback. He's always found good cornerbacks, whether it's through free agency or the draft or undrafted free agents. You look at offensive guard, Michael Onyenwu. Before that, obviously Mason. I mean, they've had guards trickle in throughout the years who have all been fantastic players. And you know what? I still think this offensive line is going to be pretty good if it's, Win, Andrews, Onyenwu, and then they find a way to fill in those last two pieces. I still think it's going to be a solid offensive line. It's just not going to be as good as it was last season, obviously, is the problem. And it's frustrating because once again, you know, this is the time where you're supposed to maximize a roster around a rookie quarterback. I think Mac Jones is good, but at the same time, you're not doing any rookie quarterback justice if you're, working around the fringes and the fine margins with a rookie quarterback. You need to get some talent around him and help him out, especially early in his career. I think that's really important. And I mean, you give him credit for being aggressive last offseason, but once again, that was an offseason where they didn't really get a number one guy, and they haven't got a number one guy, and now their defense is getting worse too. So it's frustrating to see that. I did like the Mac Wilson trade. I think Mac Wilson actually might fit into this team pretty well and does a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things that we kind of needed at that linebacker spot and coverage. I think he can do some of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And Chase Winovich just kind of seemed the odd man out for so much
Yeah.
of the season. So I like that move. I like bringing James White back. I don't mind the contract for McCourty, 1 year, $9 million. But it is frustrating to see that once again, star players are leaving New England and we don't know who's coming in to replace them.
Yeah, to me, it's like I feel like at least the J.C. Jackson move, you can say, like, listen, big money here. We trust our ability to get corners. I get all of that. But Shaq Mason's only saving you like $7 million, also. So, like, I guess the weird thing is, how could you not get more than a fifth? That's just what I can't seem to
Yeah.
comprehend.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's I don't know. It's just that's something that they've always done. It seems like they always sell low on draft pick on these guys and get, cheaper draft picks. Now the thing is that they draft 5th and 6th rounds really well. So it ends
Hmm.
up looking like genius moves, but
Sure.
you still look at it and say, okay, this is the problem is heading into the offseason, I think everybody kind of knew that the way for this team to create cap space was basically either trading or releasing Mason. He was the only guy really that was like a casualty that was like, okay, if we want to create cap space, he's probably the casualty that has to go. But yeah, I hate the value for it. I get Onyenwu now can come into his place and play well, but then it's like, why let Ted Karras go if you're going to let your, Pro Bowl offensive guard go? Why let Ted Karras leave at that point so you can keep him? And him and Onyenwu at guards is still a really cheap duo that are really good too. So I think it's a weird situation.
Yeah, especially when you kind of view this in hindsight and say, like, the Jonnu Smith and Nelson Aguilar contracts and are now kind of like, you have to pay. It's not NBA where you can just kind of trade whoever and get them to eat the cap. Like, you kind of stuck with certain, because all of NFL contracts, so much of it is the signing bonus at the beginning. So what you've already paid. Listen, the Patriots will be fine, right? No
Yeah.
one finds depth more than Bill Belichick, and what we always kind of view football teams as like, your top 5 to 8 players, where in reality it's usually the 9 through 22, or really 9 through like 35 are the main guys that really can win or lose you football games. And Belichick, from 9 to 100, it seems like he does a great job of just getting guys who can play their roles, and he'll find those guys to do it. I totally have faith that he can continue to do that. I just think it would be better if he did that and also still had Shaq Mason and J.C. Jackson.
Yeah. This team, they operate on those margins better than anybody else. I still
Hmm.
expect this team probably to end up around the 10 win mark, honestly. But at the same time, I still think that the same problems persist in New England and they haven't been addressed yet. Is that if this team has to get into a big offensive shootout, can they win that game? Can they attack downfield? And you know what? If we let those guys go and then address skill positions a little bit better with that cap space, if we bring in a wide receiver that can really be a true number one guy. There's a couple still available out there. There's a couple other guys that I think could be good buy low candidates too. If we bring in a few of those guys and take a chance, maybe then it's worthwhile, because I think this team need to get better on the skill position side. But still, they haven't done that, and history says they're not going to do that. So we'll see.
Yeah, if they trade for Russell Wilson, they'll be better too, Kyle.
Yeah, it would be.
I'm just gonna say, it's like it's possible, but right now we're just still, you could say that about any team, I guess.
Yeah. So.
But granted, what you can't say about any team is they have Bill Belichick. That's kind of that's this one saving grace, and we'll see how that works. Let's go on from here. Let's go. You know what? Let's go from here to the Chargers. Why don't we? Because we're talking about J.C. Jackson. Chargers have been busy. Chargers adding J.C. Jackson, trading for Khalil Mack, also adding defensive tackles Sebastian Joseph Day and Austin Jackson, plus re-signing Mike Williams. Chargers making the most of the cap space that they had. We talked about how, hey, this is the team on a rookie, with a quarterback on a rookie contract. They should go all in now, and that's exactly what they're doing, building this defense kind of the way that, for me, this feels like a good Brandon Staley defense, right? Where you're starting to get the defensive line to kind of be built. I think J.C. Jackson, it's a different scheme, but I think he'll still be good in it. And just getting the talent and kind of, relying on the star talent, kind of the way that the Rams did when he was with them.
Yeah. I mean, the JC Jackson thing is going to be interesting because this was something I was, kind of thinking about. Like, he's been primarily a man guy for his entire career. Man-to-man defense has been his thing. That being said, I think his ball skills allow him to translate to zone really well, and I think he can fit into his own defensive scheme that way. But at the same time, like, I don't know, because we've seen really good man-to-man quarterbacks really struggle transitioning to zone defensive schemes, and I think that could, it could be a problem. But at the same time, I think it's a good risk for Los Angeles, and I do think he could fit into that group really well. And yeah, I mean, we knew this team was going to be aggressive. We knew this team they were one game out of a playoff spot last year. They have this young rising quarterback that seems like he's the next guy. I think that this is a team that's, realizing where they're at and the potential they have, and they're addressing it. They're adjusting what they were struggling with, and I think that they've had a very good offseason. This team's going to be really good next season.
Yeah, I agree. This is they were close already. You could argue some of these moves are like a bit of an overpay. I think like specifically the Mike Williams one was kind of like, oh wow, I'm surprised he got that much. Wasn't the biggest overpay of this offseason. More on that in a second. But I think that's kind of the one maybe you could argue about. Let's talk about this Khalil Mack trade and kind of get into this, both from the Chargers and the Bears perspective. I feel like some people are mad at the Bears or like saying the Bears like don't Bears lost this trade because obviously they gave up so much to get Khalil Mack back in the day 4 years ago. Feels like time goes by so quickly, but Khalil Mack now at 31, only getting a second and a sixth. I kind of understand it though. I don't know how much more for Khalil Mack getting paid $20 million a year. The past 2 years we've seen him, he's only been averaging what would be about 30 pressures per 16 or per 16 games. So not 17, but that's solid, but that's not like superstar talent. So maybe you're hoping he just gets healthier and gets better, but it's not like we're getting 27-year-old Khalil Mack.
Right. Like, this is, I don't know. This just feels like, you know what? I think the Chargers looked at this as like, yes, we're probably paying, 105 cents on the dollar for the Khalil Mack trade. But at the same time, like, when you're this close, it's kind of like, do you really risk like not having a player like that who can make that sort of impact? Like, what, I guess I should switch it. There's really no risk to doing it because at the worst case scenario, he just struggles for a couple seasons. You're still going to have a pretty good pass rush with Joey Bosa on the other side. I think it's just kind of like, okay, we can just make this move and we could be elite on that part. We could be an elite pass rushing team with those two if Mac finds a groove again. So I kind of like the move for both sides. I mean, I think Chicago just needs to rebuild. I think it's a teardown project. I think they should reboot. This was a good way to get draft capital too, after trading some draft capital to get Justin Fields. So I think it's a pretty good move in that boat, in that you're getting an all right haul in return. And then I think Mac just I think it kind of just works for what Los Angeles wants to do, which is compete. We don't know how good he's going to be, but it could just be like, you know what? We're not risking a ton here to be potentially a lot better if Mac pans out.
Yeah, Khalil Mack has he's never been a big sack guy, but he's always been a big pressure guy and also plays the run defense really well, which that's kind of the more exciting part for me is just getting another guy who can stop the run in that defensive line because that's what you need. You need defensive linemen who can win their one-on-one matchups and get the tackles at the line of scrimmage in the Brandon Staley defense, and that's what's exciting for me. I agree with what you said. I think that this is a move that it for the Chargers. You talk about the no risk, I mean, or the low risk. It's a second round pick, so there's some talent there. That's not nothing. But if Khalil Mack sucks next year, you can just cut him. There's no penalty because the contract was actually a little confusing to me. I said the wrong thing on one of my videos because the way it worked was at first Ian Rappaport tweeted out that the Chargers were taking on the entire contract, but that's not exactly true because some of the contract was already paid out, so they're not taking on that, which we already knew. So I don't know why Rappaport phrased it the way he did. But basically, just the Bears only save about $6 million in cap space this year, but then they save a ton of money in future years. The Chargers are the ones who now can pay. It's about $20 million a year, and they can cut him for no cost at any point.
Yeah. So now you're at this point now where I don't know what their cap situation's like for the rest of the offseason, but they went pretty heavy on some of these guys with Mack, with Jackson. And then from what I heard, that Mike Williams contract, not only is it expensive, but it's pretty front loaded. So at this point, I don't know what their cap situation's like. What are you looking for Los Angeles to fill out this team?
Interesting. I mean, so if you think about again, we make the Rams and Chargers comparisons, right? Not only them playing in the same city, but also Brandon Staley was in the McVay coaching tree, and kind of the way that the Rams were able to be effective was by trading away draft capital for star players, and then also by being able to in the later rounds being able to add solid starters like in late rounds. They got like a decent in the fourth and fifth and sixth round, they were getting like starting caliber players. So maybe not stars, but guys who can just fill out the roster. I'm not as sold on Asante Samuel Jr. as other people are. That's kind of one of those weird things where I feel like I don't know. I've never been as big of a fan of him as some other people are. I get that it's fun because his dad was in the NFL. I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world to put another corner in the room, but they can make that work. I would still like to see them get. I guess here's the one main thing is I'd like to see them get is another receiver. I want to see someone who can go over the middle. I think that was a big area of issues last year, and that's what I would like to see them do this year.
Yeah, and they had the draft pick, and they still have a little bit of money, it seems like, to be able to do that. So I do think that's something they address. I'm pretty interested. So we're not talking draft today, but I kind of just at 17, because I think they have the 17th pick. I thought that Jordan Davis is my favorite player in the draft.
Okay.
But it's so interesting.
Yet.
Yeah, it's so interesting because he's basically a nose tackle. And so it's like there's two sides of this is that he's a generational nose tackle. But do you draft a guy in the first round who might only play 2 downs per, he doesn't play third down. Those are the two conflicting questions when it comes to Davis. But at the same time, I always just kind of penciled him in as like, oh, I think he'd fit the Chargers really well as run stuff and defensive tackle. But then they add Johnson and Joseph Day, who I don't feel like are like Pro Bowlers or anything, but they're all right. So it'll be interesting to see how they fill out this roster. I do think one more receiver could fill out. But yeah, I mean, we talked about if this team hits a home run in the offseason, they can compete for a Super Bowl. This is a high fly ball to left that's going towards Law. It's pretty close.
Right.
If they can continue and get this over the line, this team's gonna be fun to watch next season.
Yeah, I agree. They're interesting. Let's just touch on the Bears. Just a small thing to talk about with them. Kyle, why the hell did they give Larry Ogunjobi so much money? Do you know this? I know it's a small thing, but why are we paying Larry Ogunjobi double-digit millions of dollars at this point in his? What are we doing here?
I don't know. That was a weird move to me. So is that just position just becoming en vogue and people feel like they need to replicate it now? That kind of defensive tackle that can pass rush a little bit. Is everyone just feeling like, even though they're not even close to like some of the best guys, is that just something that everyone feels like they need to address now?
I guess so. It's weird how it seems like any defensive lineman that it hits free agency just gets like a starting salary of like at least $8 million.
Yeah. People
and
love their
usually 10
defensive
million.
line. But yeah, I mean, I just feel like that we've hit this point now where, listen, I love a good interior pass rushing defensive lineman, but not all of them need to get paid. I think Ogunjobi's all right, but he's not a double-digit $1 million player to me. So, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how this pans out. It just maybe it felt like they were just wanted to throw some money around. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of different variables to this. There's stuff about like making sure you do the good to the agents, build that relationship with agents. Who knows what happens with this whole deal? But yeah, I mean, he's an all right player, but he's not a $40 million player to me.
I mean, if one of the first moves you're making as a new general manager is making sure you get an agent likes you, I mean, I guess it probably worked.
Yeah, no kidding.
I don't know. Pay to 10% of that salary just to the agent.
Yeah, you could just hand him some cash and say, "Okay, thanks." I mean, listen, he's not a terrible football player.
No, he's not. It's you go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm just gonna say, it's not like they're getting a stiff. I think he's all right. Yeah, he's overpaid, but at the same time, if they looked at this and said, "This is a position of need we want," and this is the guy, this is the guy they circled. Maybe you say, you know what, let's pay 120 cents on the dollar to make sure we get our guy. Now, I don't know if I'd look at the offseason and say we have to get Larry Ogunjobi, but at the same time, if that's the guy they wanted, that's who they got. So we'll see how it works out. I don't know. I don't think this team's going to be competitive for the next few years. So maybe they just wanted to get him in the building. Who knows?
Yeah. Kyle, some small breaking news here. I'm keeping an eye on Twitter. Former Raiders fullback Alec Ingold signing a 2-year deal, $7.5 million with the Dolphins. Mike McDaniel, Kyle Shanahan jury getting a fullback. Ingold a good fullback. That's fun.
Yeah, always love our fullbacks here on the podcast. Hey, I've been watching Ingold since he was lead blocking there for a couple of good running backs in Wisconsin. He can do some good stuff. I like what he can do. He's not quite the juice, but I think he can fill that kind of role pretty well.
Yeah, it seems like that's kind of their Kyle Juszczyk, element of that they're going to try to do in Miami. We talked about some overpays with Chicago. Let's talk about Jacksonville. What is going on?
Every offseason. They do it every offseason. How did this team
This is on a new level.
Money? Yeah.
I mean, this is absurd. Right. Jacksonville is well known for spending a lot of money on free agency and it not making them good, except for 2017. Worked out that one year. That's the one. I guess they've been trying to replicate that. Kyle, so I ran some numbers on this. I looked at the math of this. So here are the players that they've re-signed, and here's how much money on average is going to be for 1 year. So Cam Robinson at 16.6 because that was the franchise tag. Brandon Sheriff at 16.5. Foyce Aluakon getting 15. And then also we have Fatuski. I'm not sure how to say his first name. 10 million for him. Christian Kirk 18 million. Evan Ingram 9 million. Zay Jones. How much does Zay Jones get? I have 2.5 million, but that's not right in my notes. And then also Darius Williams getting 13 million. So we're looking at over $100 million per year, not total, for this year. If you average it out, over $100 million to get you what PFF WAR would have all these guys getting is still under a win. Adding to your team. So for under a win, you're spending over $100 million. Just to put that into perspective, the average WAR that a team spends on a win is around 25.6. So if the average team spent for $100 million, spent it at this ratio, they would be getting like 4 wins. And if a championship team would be getting about 6 wins, they're getting under 1 for all of what they did. Now, maybe you think that you're going to get some of these guys to perform better once you give them the contract, but I don't know. This is a weird one.
Yeah, well, maybe, the good news is that they had so much talent already on the team that, that one win might make the difference between the playoffs or not. No, I'm just kidding. But, okay, there's a lot to unpack here. So, I guess if I'm going to defend, should I try and defend the Jaguars?
Sure. I like that. Yeah.
Okay, let me try and defend the Jaguars. If you're going to get free agents to Jacksonville, you have to pay. There is a premium you have to pay, correct? So this is the argument for small market basketball teams, small market baseball teams who just continue to infuriate me, but that's a different conversation. And even I think smaller market football teams, that if you want free agents in your building, especially given the history of your organization and the locker room issues, all that kind of stuff, coaches issues, all that kind of stuff, maybe, you're probably going to have to pay a premium to get free agents to want to say, I want to be a Jaguar. So I guess that's the argument you can make. And you know what? There's some of these guys on this team. I like Brandon Sheriff. I like Darius Williams.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some decent players here.
Yeah.
That being said, there's some really bad money being thrown around in this group too. I mean, the Christian Kirk thing is just that's unexplainable, right? I mean, $21 million for a guy who might be a number 3 receiver. That's unexplainable. I don't get it.
Yeah, I think I'd go a little bit. I think he's an okay number 2 guy. That's where I would put him at, especially
2.5.
I'll say 2. I'll say a solid. I say he's the 16th best number 2 receiver in football. I'll put him there.
Okay, that's fair. But that being said, so this team, we joked about this last year. Laquan Treadwell was their number 1 guy for a lot of the season. DJ Chark got hurt. I don't know what the level of DJ Chark is right now, but he's also not on the team anymore. So, Christian Kirk is now their number 1 guy, and you just said he might be the the 48th best receiver in football at best. So
that sounds a little high now when you say it like that. Maybe like we'll say 60.
Yeah, so the top 60 receiver is going to be your number 1 guy. I mean, I like Kirk's skill set, but he just hasn't shown to be number 1 guy in the league, and you're paying him $21 million, hoping that he can realize his potential finally. That's just a terrible move. I think there's some good moves here, but you splash so much cash, I just don't know how much better this team got. I mean, I don't think this team got better at all.
Right. Maybe a win better. Again, that's if they performed as well as they did last year. It would be looking at about a win of an addition there. Let's talk about the Christian Kirk itself move for a second, because I think I agree with you. I like Darius Williams. I like Brandon Sheriff. Those are cool. The Christian Kirk one is just real. I guess here's the logic behind it. I think that they're like, we just need to get receiver talent. I don't care if it's not worth the money. We need to get some good receivers in this building because of how bad our receiving core is right now. We need to just go out and get some guys. And if we're overspending, who cares? The point is to develop Trevor Lawrence right now. The point isn't to win a Super Bowl this next year. That seems like that's the logic behind it. And to some degree, I can wrap my head around that a little bit. If this is kind of an acceptance of we're not going to be great right now, we have to overpay for guys, but let's just overpay for guys. Hopefully we can start to get better. Lawrence can show that he can play. And then in 2 years, good free agents will actually want to come here.
Yeah. So at the very least, you can look at that. I mean, I guess let's do this. If we just take it sounds crazy because, I mean, I think it's kind of dumb to look at it this way, but I'm going to do it anyways. If you just took away the financials of this, if we looked at it today and said, if we had this podcast today and just said, hey, the Jaguars added Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Brandon Sheriff, Foley Fatuski, Darius Williams, Tyler Shatley, all these guys. If they just added those guys and not even looking at the financials, what would you say about the Jaguars right now?
Pretty good.
Yeah,
it helped them out a little. Yeah, maybe they could, make a couple of moves. Maybe they could try to get 8-9 wins next year.
Yeah, I think that's the argument they're trying to make. Doug Peterson apparently hates having number 1 receivers too, which is just, I don't get it. But yeah, he's just gonna roll into his entire coaching career without a number 1 receiver, basically. But listen, I think that there's some good players here. They did spend a ton of money. They spent a premium for it. So we'll see if this team can maybe, if Lawrence gets better, though, this might look like a really good offseason just because of Lawrence's improvement.
In practice, how do you think that they will be able to tell apart Evan Ingram and Laviska Shenault? Think like put like a mark on one of them or something?
Is it going to be like Michael Scott with the 2 Asian women having to put the Sharpie on it?
Yeah. Very similar skill sets with those two.
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, it was crazy to look at. It was crazy to see all those numbers. But at the end of the day, you know what? I think the Jaguars got better. So I'll give them that.
I guess so. I mean, they spent $108 million to do it. I would hope so.
Well, and there's no talent on the team. So, I mean, they could have signed like 2 of these guys, and I'd say, oh, they're a lot better now.
That's a good point. So many of their players are like below replacement level currently on the roster that maybe just getting guys who are like a little bit above replacement level is actually adding more than just the one win I'm giving them credit for.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's like, yeah, Christian Kirk isn't not a $21 million receiver, but he's way better than Laquan Treadwell. He's way
Sure.
better.
Hey,
So
we will not take Laquan Treadwell slander on this podcast, Kyle.
I'm sorry. I just have to say, Darius Williams is going to be better than any of their corners that they have.
Yeah, and maybe him and Tyson Campbell can sort of fill out that secondary. Should be interesting. Let's move on. I guess here's an interesting thing to talk about. The Mitchell Trubisky is a Pittsburgh Steeler. This was a big story when it happened. I was kind of surprised. I like the move, right? I think I wouldn't love it if this is all the Steelers do. I think they still need to, kind of reminds me of the Sam Darnold move a little bit, where it's like, hey, you're getting a guy who has some potential but hasn't shown it yet at the NFL level. Taking a flyer on him isn't a bad move, but if this is all they're doing, then that's when I would be concerned.
Yeah, not to mention too, it's a pretty, $7 million is a pretty good number for a backup quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the incentive is that if he plays well, he's going to end up around $13.5 million, which
Sure.
if he plays well, then $13.5 million is a bargain for a starting quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see if there can be a career, Mitchell Trubisky or whatever it's called. So yeah, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's going to be good, but I think it's a pretty good buy low move. Whereas let's compare it to that Sam Darnold thing, because Sam Darnold was another big time prospect, didn't pan out.
Mm-hmm.
The Panthers not only took kind of a bigger contract than this with the Darnold move, they also gave up draft capital. There's no draft capital involved with this with Pittsburgh, and it's a cheaper contract that's incentive based, so that you're happy both ways, because if he's bad, you got a pretty decent backup quarterback on a good contract. If he's good, you got a good value for starting quarterback value.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like a no risk move. The only reason to be a risk if you think like you're going to be competitive next year, which the Steelers are not going to be competitive next year. They're doing the right thing. This is a rebuild move, and this is a good rebuild move.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, this team, it's not a bad offseason. I thought they were actually pretty decent this offseason. I like the offensive linemen they brought in too.
Sure.
But at the same time, I do think this team needs a lot more. And I mean, this is not going to be. This isn't close to a playoff team to me right now at this stage. I know they made it last year, but I don't know if this is close to a playoff team right now with this current iteration. I still think they need to do a little more, like you were saying.
Hey, I'm never betting against Mike Tomlin. I'm never going to do it.
That's true.
I don't care. He'll drag, the team he drugged to the playoffs last year, anything is possible. Yeah, interesting stuff there. How many millions of dollars do you think the Chicago Bears made Mitchell Trubisky last year?
Probably all of this, honestly.
You think he's not in the league if it wasn't for that?
Nah, he'd still find a spot in the league. He's probably making like $5 million, if not. So he probably got a good $10 million off of just being a backup for a year and rebuilding his brand.
Yeah, is that just a move? Is like what Jameis Winston did this too? I think Teddy Bridgewater just sign as a back, because he was a backup last year. He got $2.5 million. Now he does not play, and now he's getting $14.2 million for 2 years plus incentives.
Yeah, I mean, people are desperate for quarterbacks, so they're going to take a chance on you.
Mm-hmm.
Now that being said, would you be shocked if Pittsburgh gets another quarterback?
I'd be shocked if they didn't.
Okay.
I think that there's going to be some sort of. I can't imagine it's Trubisky and Rudolph, or I guess and Haskins. Maybe they won't then, because they have people on the roster. But I guess what I would say is I would draft somebody, whether it's in the first round or in the fifth round, whatever. Make sure that Trubisky is not plan A, B, and C. You have to have other options here.
Hey, one of the top quarterbacks. He may have small hands, but he played right there at Heinz Field for his entire college career, which felt like it was 10 years. He could be right there, ready to just walk across the hallway.
Yeah, I've heard that speculated. We'll see if that happens. Kyle, a trade happened today. Yannick Ngakoue got traded for Rock Ya-Sin straight up, which we don't see those in the NFL too often. A 1-for-1 trade. Also, the Raiders would then use some of that money. They saved $7 million in the trade, spent $17 million a year for Chandler Jones. So initial thoughts on that trade?
Um, I kind of like Rock Ya-Sin. I think he's solid. And I guess the thing is so Indianapolis, it feels like it's had this like revolving door of trying to add pass rushers and like just always needing a pass rusher. It feels like, and I guess they're hoping that Ngakoue then works out because I mean he was bad last year, right? Like I didn't think he wasn't that impressive to me with Las Vegas last season. So maybe they're just hoping to buy low and say, hey, if it works out, we got a high level pass rusher for pretty cheap. But at the same time, yeah, I mean they're hoping he gets better than he was last season.
Interesting. I didn't think he was horrible. I'm looking at his PFF grades, and those were not great. So maybe I was just wrong. My impression when I saw him, I thought he actually played all right. So maybe I'm just delusional. He is someone who has played well in specific schemes, though. So maybe it's just kind of a scheme thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I always just kind of liked having I just the times when I watched the Raiders, I thought Nassib was a better spot out there. But maybe that's just me. But I don't know. I thought he struggled at times last season. But yeah, I mean, if he works well in Indianapolis, he's still proven that he can be a high level pass rusher in this league. And I think that's something that they need. So I think it makes sense. And then the Raiders go and I think they get a pretty good cornerback out of this.
Yeah. Again, I'm looking more sort of at his numbers. If you use the PFF stats where they don't do half sacks, they just give you credit for a full sack. He had 10 of those. So got the production, but maybe the numbers, again, using their just first glance at their grades, first 4 weeks, he was very good and then kind of fell off, especially in the middle of the season there. They kind of got better towards the end of the year. So that's what they say about him. But yeah, I think that, I guess the one thing I'll say is Unique Ngakoue feels like a Colt. Like he just feels like someone who like would fit that scheme well, assuming they're going to run the same scheme. They have a new defensive, both of these teams have new defensive coordinators, so that might just be as simple as it gets. But he does feel like he's someone who can, who can play that well.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's fair. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. And he's going into a pretty good defensive line too. So obviously those opportunities I think could help him out. It'll be interesting to see how that works out for them. But I think it's a good low risk move for both sides. I think it's, the Vegas looks at it and says, hey, we get a pretty good starting caliber cornerback out of the deal. And then the Colts say, hey, we get potentially a stud pass rusher who at the very least is just going to be all right at that end.
Yeah. And the Raiders then added Chandler Jones. So it's like, I mean, you basically, I mean, I've had concerns about Chandler Jones' run defense, but like, okay, Chandler Jones now is still basically Unique Ngakoue at his best. So like you're basically evening out there, and then you add a defensive back on top of it, and you're only spending about $10 million to do it. So I think that it's almost like a very I feel like video game move type thing, right? Where you trade away a good player and then use that cap space to also sign a good player, kind of a double dipping.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think Jones will fit that spot pretty well. This is a team that the Raiders, I thought, defended the run pretty well last year, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I mean, if they continue to defend the run pretty well and he can just focus on pass rushing, I think that's a pretty good move for the Raiders.
Yeah, it's interesting. Part of me wonder again. I don't know what kind of scheme we're going to see with the Raiders. I really don't. I mean, we've had multiple defensive. It was weird when they got rid of Paul Gunther and then added Gus Bradley, only to run like the same scheme, although like just better coached. Now I think that again, hard to be a lot worse coached than Paul Gunther. But now with this, I wonder if we'll see more of a Bill Belichick-y type move. I don't know. So that's what remains to be seen.
Yeah, they got the Giants defensive coordinator, right?
Yeah, he's bounced around for a while. He was at the Patriots for a while. I forget his name, but yeah, he's been like on a new team every year for the past like 10 years.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see how that works out. I imagine it kind of looks Patriots-ish, but I don't know if they'll run as much man given their roster. But it'll be interesting to see exactly how they line up.
Yeah, I think so as well. Kyle, Zadarius Smith is a Raven again. This is a weird, kind of a fun move, right? Where it's like he goes in free agency, which I remember that was one of my takes I nailed, was I thought that he was really underrated with the Ravens, and it was a good move by Green Bay. He goes to Green Bay and just goes off, exceeds even my expectations of that. And now he goes back with the Ravens. I can't remember seeing a scenario like this. Usually this kind of thing will happen when like there's new coaching staff, and then that's how like someone returns home. This is the same coaching staff. They're just like, okay, yeah, we shouldn't let you out of the building. Let's get you again.
Yeah. Baltimore Ravens are Super Bowl contenders, right?
Interesting. I mean, it's just so tough because the AFC, there's like 10 Super Bowl contenders in the AFC. But I mean,
they're
I
one of
think
those
so.
10. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that they've hit a home run on basically every one of these deals. Zadarius Smith, the numbers that we heard, is very incentive based too. So I think they're getting a pretty good deal out of it. Marcus Williams is a stud, and he's going to be next to a healthy Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey. And also, I really like Morgan Moses. So not a ton of signings for the Ravens, but I feel like they knocked all three out of the park. They filled three needs, and I think this is going to be an even better team as long as it stays healthy. I really like this Ravens team right now and what they're doing.
Yeah, I'd still like to. I know the receiving core was better last year. I'd still like to see them put more resources in that. Maybe that's another draft thing.
Well, and two, like if I want to see a full season of Bateman, because I mean,
Yeah.
if it's Bateman, Andrews, Brown, that's pretty decent three if Bateman works out.
Sure. Yeah, I agree.
J.K. Dobbins too out of the backfield.
Right. Yeah, and I mean the real thing with the Ravens is just like getting healthy again. Like all the guys you're getting are just the guys who you had last year, but they weren't healthy.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I really like this offseason. This is one of the better off seasons in my book. I thought the Williams move was really good. And I think adding a guy like Smith too is just incentive to get it even better because like I said, it's not a huge contract either for a guy who was a pretty good pass rusher just a couple seasons ago. So I'm all in on this Ravens team so far.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I like it too. I think it makes sense. Also, is Morgan Moses the best value offensive lineman in NFL history? It seems like he's always like he's solid tackle. You know what you're going to get, and just plug and play no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who you can feel pretty good about just being right tackle for 16 games a season, and you're going to be, you don't have, there's nothing that has to change. It's just you go out there, you feel good about him. I mean, him and Staley on the tackles, that's a pretty good duo.
Yeah, don't have to pay him too much. It's a perfect situation with him. It's a good stuff by the Ravens. Chiefs made a little bit of noise. They signed Justin Reed. I have to say, I think Justin Reed's going to be a great. Justin Reed's kind of the guy where it's like he's just incredible athlete, and the talent has, or the production has sometimes matched that. The past 2 years it hasn't. The question though is, Lovie Smith has a defense that like basically says like, hey, safeties, go just stand in your own end zone for the entire. I don't care where the ball is on the field. Go as far deep as possible. It's going to be a lot more aggressive situation in Kansas City where, he's clearly the Tyrann Mathieu replacement, I would assume. I guess they could still get Mathieu, but this could be a fun signing I could see.
Yeah, that's the thing. I like Reed the player, and I like his potential fit in this team, but I'm not sure how much I love it without Mathieu. I don't know if I love him as a Mathieu replacement. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out, but I think it's a good aggressive move. I thought the Chiefs did some good things too. They got Orlando Brown back on that franchise tag. They restructured that Frank Clark deal to make it a little more financially feasible, which is a good move because it was a terrible contract. So they did good things, and I think this team, obviously this team was still going to be excellent no matter what. It's going to be interesting to see how they fill out the rest of this roster because I still think they need another receiver. I still think that they're going to need help in that secondary because Travarius Ward signed somewhere too, right?
Yeah, with San Francisco.
Yeah, so I think they're still going to need a little bit of help in this secondary, especially with if they end up not getting Mathieu too. So it'll be interesting to see how the Chiefs fill out this team.
Yeah. What is the do you not love it as a Mathieu replacement just because of how much you like Tyrann Mathieu as a player?
Yeah.
Basically. Gotcha. Fair enough. I get all that. The Chiefs still do have some holes in their roster. They're not denying that. But hey, I guess it's better than not having a safety than having Justin Reed.
That's true. That's true. I mean, it is a good basically fallback option too if you lose Mathieu. And then what? I wouldn't mind them playing together either. I think that's a pretty good combination.
Yeah, that'd be fun to watch. I just thought that when I said it. I'm like, oh yeah, that would be great. All right, few more moves here too. Few more things to talk about to kind of we can lightning round this for Amari Cooper is now we knew he was going to probably be gone. Ends up getting traded for very low draft capital to the Cleveland Browns. Thoughts on that?
Good move for Cleveland. They need a number one guy. I thought people were talking about the Landry thing. Landry wasn't very good last year. I mean, part
Mm-hmm.
of that could have been Baker Mayfield. We saw how bad Baker Mayfield was, how injured Baker Mayfield was.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows what that was? So at the same time, I think that could be a good move for them to bring in a true number one receiver. And you know what? I think that they're okay with losing a guy like Landry.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because of the, I mean, they're basically with losing Landry and gaining Amari Cooper, it's only costing them a few more million to do it with the money they're saving from Landry. So I think that's kind of why they're, and I think Cooper could be a great fit in that Stefanski offense. So that should be fun.
Yeah.
Here's a good question. Well, first here we have a super sticker from Jin Jin Wins. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Also, this question by the Lions fan who great in the chat, although I never know how to pronounce his name, Zekwa. Who says, what would you rank the Lions signing DJ Chark for a year prove it deal with for up to $12 million? Can maybe be that field stretcher if healthy. Kyle, I think this is a good move, right? It's totally a 1 year flyer, worth the risk. You have some control over him if you do want to keep him the following year. It seems like it seems like this is a much better move than the DJ Chark thing. Or excuse me, than the Christian Kirk thing.
Yeah, I'd rather pay DJ Chark $12 million compared to Christian Kirk $21 million.
Yeah,
that's for sure. And hey, you know what? You got a guy who really showed out in the second half of the season, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. You have a good tight end in Hawkinson. You're bringing in a guy like Chark to be kind of that third guy. You have a good pass catching running back out of the backfield. Two good pass catching running backs out of the backfield. Actually, I like Williams too in that spot. So there's some stuff there in Detroit. I said it last year, and I think it was a little bit too premature, but I wouldn't be surprised if, I don't think it's going to be a good team, but if this offense is a little frisky this next season.
Wow, potential for I think they might still need a little bit more work to want to put them up at frisky.
Let's see. I guess I'd put frisky like top 22, not bottom 10.
Okay, they could contend to be a tier 4 offense next year.
Yeah. I mean, I could see them maybe winning a shootout.
Sure, a shootout, as in one shootout throughout the course of the season.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. I like. Let's take this from DJ Chark's perspective. Are you surprised he took the 1 year prove it deal with the Lions? Like, why not go to Kansas City and take a few million less, but you'll get probably way more stats and potentially could get a bigger long term deal the following offseason?
Yeah, I don't know. That is pretty interesting, but I think I guess you could still look at it and say, you know what, Goff's a decent enough quarterback to get me the ball. And if I do you look at the quarterbacks that were at Jacksonville the last few seasons, and he was putting up numbers, and it's just okay. If DJ Chark was a free agent last offseason, what's his contract looking like compared to this offseason? So I think he's looking at Goff might be the best quarterback that he's ever played with, and he can still, go and get some all right numbers, get a decent contract next season.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, interesting. Kyle, Randy Gregory at first said that he was a Dallas Cowboy. It seemed like all of a sudden goes and ends up signing with the Denver Broncos. That's kind of a weird scenario.
Yeah, I feel like we hear about these once every couple of off seasons, and this was just one of the ones where it was reported that he was basically signed with the Cowboys, then he flipped it on them. This keeps happening with Dallas teams too, with DeAndre Jordan too. But anyways, but yeah, I mean, I like the move for Denver. I like the move, and it's a little ironic Randy Gregory going to a legal marijuana state. Not that he can smoke in the NFL, but whatever. But yeah, it's just I think it's a good move for Denver. I guess it takes them out of the Von Miller sweepstakes, and I guess that hurts the Cowboys. But at the same time, based on the rumors, if the Cowboys end up with Von Miller out of this, is that a good move?
Yeah, probably. I mean, Randy Gregory is interesting, right? Because obviously there's all the suspensions, and it's also I always feel like his tape, and his production doesn't match up. It seems like his tape is better than what he's actually been able to produce. So the hope is that maybe that'll, the production will match the tape next year in Denver.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, not to mention he's going to be next to Chubb next season. So I think it's a pretty good defensive line that he can work with there in Denver. And Denver's building the team. They're ready to compete for a Super Bowl.
Yeah, another team ready to compete for a Super Bowl, the one that was in it last year, the Cincinnati Bengals signed Alex Kappa, who's like a solid guard. Seemed like this is like the Bengals are doing like what the Jaguars are trying to do, right? Which is like, okay, we're gonna give a few extra $1 million to Alex Kappa, but because we know he's like a solid offensive lineman who will like play for us and it's our biggest position of need.
Yeah, and not to mention, I thought they got a pretty good left guard in his spot. Pretty good left guard on the other side in Ted Karras, who can also play center. So yeah, you paid a lot for one guard who's a very good guard, and you
Hmm.
get a pretty solid guy next to him on a pretty good value contract as well. So just like that, I mean, not that they're the best guard duo in football or anything, but this was probably the worst guard duo in football last
Right.
season. And now
Hmm.
you got some pretty decent guys there. Jonah Williams gets healthy. This seems like a pretty shrewd offseason for the Bengals. They did lose CJ Uzuma, but I thought everything else was pretty good.
Yeah, and the offseason's not done. We'll see what else they do because they do have a little bit of money on top of this. I guess two more things to touch on. Final like free agents, final news to touch on. I thought the Jets did a solid job this offseason. Like
They
nothing
did.
too flashy, but they made some good small moves, re-signing Braxton Berrios for 2 years, 16 million, getting CJ Uzuma for 3 years, 25 million. You got DJ Reed, Jordan Whitehead, re-signing Nathan Shepard, also getting the elite Joe Flacco back on the roster. So also, I can't believe Joe Flacco's still in the league, right? That does not compete. Like it feels like he's been retired for 18 years, even though he's
The-
like played every year too. It's not like he like
yeah.
hasn't played.
Yeah, it's funny.
Hmm.
I'm gonna go a little further. This one's up there with Baltimore for one of my favorite off seasons so far.
Okay.
I thought they've
Hmm.
done a really good job. I think this is filling out a roster pretty nicely.
Uh
I
huh.
thought, I look at this roster and I look everybody on the offense side of the ball. I think every one of those guys is going to help Zach Wilson be a better quarterback. Every
Yeah.
one of them. Even if Flacco was a backup, is going to help Zach Wilson be a better quarterback. I look on the defensive side of the ball. DJ Reed and Jordan Whitehead are going to help this defense be better. I think LaMarcus Joyner is going to help this defense be better too as he resigns. So I think this is a pretty good offseason for the Jets too.
Yeah, yeah, I'm totally with you. I think this is the we kind of obviously the Jets and the Jaguars are going to get those comparisons because they both drafted very hyped up quarterbacks with the number 1 and number 2 overall picks. And I think they were both very bad before doing that. And I think you see kind of the difference between what the way these two teams are. I think the Jets are a organization that's been pretty well run these past like in recent memory and past 2 years or so. And I think you can kind of see just the difference between like people are willing to go play for the Jets, like someone like Braxton Berrios re-signing and like seemingly being very excited about re-signing. Like there's a lot more optimism with the Jets as is for the Jaguars. It's really just please Trevor Lawrence save us.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the thing is with the Jets here is like, I think the Jets in years past, if you looked at them, would have put a ton of money towards Marcus Williams, which would have been a good move. Marcus Williams is a good player. But when you
Hmm.
look at this Jets roster, like one safety isn't going to fix the whole thing. So instead of paying a ton of money for Marcus Williams, let's go get a pretty good safety in Jordan Whitehead and then also get I think, a really good corner in DJ Reed. And then
Hmm.
also, you can that allows you to get guys like Lakin Tomlinson, like getting a Uzuma, like bringing back Braxton Berrios. You get to fill out this roster a little more that I think needs talent.
Yeah, I also think Reed will fit that defense very well. So, and you're getting Carl Lawson back. Remember, they lost him in the preseason all year to injuries.
Yeah.
So that could be cool. Final thing that we could talk about. I put it in my notes. I'm not sure how much you want to get into this, but there is the whole Baker Mayfield situation, the whole Deshaun Watson stuff. Did you have any thoughts on that?
Um, I don't know. Like the thing is like listen, like I understand that Cleveland likes Baker. I understand that the fans like Baker,
Mm-hmm.
but regardless of how you feel about this Watson situation, like the Cleveland Browns front office has to do with due diligence to get as good as it can, right? Like you have like the goal for NFL front office is to win a championship.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a chance to upgrade a quarterback, you have to, explore that avenue as much as possible, right? Now, I think Baker Mayfield has a right to be a little upset about it, but I also think Cleveland Browns have a complete right to want to get a quarterback in that might be better than Baker Mayfield. So I thought the thank you note was a little weird based on like I still think Baker Mayfield's going to be their starter next year, so that's going to be awkward. But like I think both sides have, arguments here.
Yeah, and it's also like, I mean, how many quarterbacks in the AFC are better than Baker Mayfield right now, too? It's like the entire AFC West, right? They have better quarterbacks than Baker Mayfield. That's 4. Ryan Tannehill, I would say, is better than Baker Mayfield. You have 2 in his own division with, Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. You also definitely have Josh Allen. You could argue like Tua and Mac Jones, could they be better than Baker Mayfield? They were last year. So
Yeah.
that's 10 quarterbacks who outperformed Baker Mayfield. And there's still also like these young, could Trevor Lawrence or could Zach Wilson step up? Like he could end up being like the 13th best quarterback in the conference next year. Like you got to try to find an upgrade. So, like you said, he's allowed to be upset about it for sure. But the front office's job is to find the best quarterback. But I also get it's a little bit weirder though when it's Deshaun Watson as the other thing, dude. And that's just kind of that's just a weird other aspect of this.
Yeah. Like this whole situation is so crazy. It's like, because I mean, even if a team brings in Deshaun Watson, I don't expect him to play week 1. Like
Right.
you
Yeah,
have to imagine based on the history of who were the guys that got suspended for things similar. Like
James
basically
Winston, I believe Ezekiel Elliott, also for domestic violence got suspended when he wasn't accused of wasn't convicted of anything. Ben Roethlisberger. So yeah, there's history of getting suspended even without, as you were saying, even without getting convicted of anything.
Yeah. So I mean, I believe the expectation is he's going to get a 6 to 8 game suspension. So yeah. So I think it'll be interesting to see, but at the same time, yeah, it's crazy that it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out because he's someone who was beloved by that fan base, struggled last year, battled through injuries. I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It's bizarre to say the least. So, yeah, Kyle, I think that's our show. We just about covered the main talking points. There's some little things we didn't get to. I know if you're disappointed, we didn't talk about your team in this podcast. Next week, we're going to go through every single team and talk about. I think what we could do next week, Kyle, is just kind of say like winners, losers, or like winners or losers for all 32 teams.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Yeah. All right, cool. So yeah, that's what we're going to do next week. So we'll kind of get we want to get more in depth on
winner.
What's that?
Jacksonville winner.
Yeah, Jacksonville, massive winner. Hey, they got better, right? That's the goal?
That's the goal. One win better.
All right, we'll see. Maybe maybe they'll be picking second this time next year.
Can't wait to see it, man.
Yeah, should be interesting stuff. Kyle, any final thoughts before we head out?
No. I think we just about covered everything. Pretty interesting to see, I mean, it's been a wild couple weeks of NFL stuff and going basically back from the Russell Wilson trade and that Aaron Rodgers thing, which Aaron Rodgers signed the same exact contract. Basically, he said he didn't sign. Right. So basically going back from that all the way to this Brady news, NFL free agency. It's been a fun offseason.
Yeah, this has been great. I like it. Getting clicks on my YouTube channel, which you don't always get in the off season because things are happening.
Yeah. So pretty good stuff. And like you said, we'll wrap up free agency and then it's turning around right from there. It's basically 1 month to the NFL draft.
Yeah, Kyle. So next week is free agency. We'll have to fill out the show on the 30th. We'll have to figure out a topic for that one. But then the week after that, we're gonna be doing our top 10 quarterbacks show for the draft. So we're getting into it.
We have to name 10. No, I'm just kidding. I think there's some good depth here, so it'll be interesting. So yeah, we'll go through it all. We'll give you all of our prospect details. Jackson's got to do some research because he doesn't watch college football.
I've been watching. I've got like 5 quarterbacks down already, Kyle.
You got 5 quarterbacks down.
Mm-hmm.
Who have you watched?
I've watched here. Let me pull up my notes. So I've got in no particular order. Let me do alphabetical order. Desmond Ridder. I've watched. Now I have to figure out which one comes first. And I'm just going to no particular order. Desmond Ridder, Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, Malik Willis, and Sam Howell are the 5 that I have watched so far.
Interesting. Do you have a favorite?
Kind of. It's weird. To tease it a little bit, I just think the Malik Willis thing is just so interesting, right? It's like he's clearly got the most talent, but it's like there's those extra. Like he's such a high ceiling and such a low floor player. It's hard to really figure him out. compared to everyone else.
Yeah, I knew he'd shine at the combine, and he kind of climbed up everyone's rankings after that. And we'll give this for free because everyone's sticking around for an hour and 5 on a
Sure, if
Wednesday
you're here an
afternoon.
hour and 5 minutes in, you can go here.
I like Willis, the talent. Here's the thing: I feel like Malik Willis knows how to be the best athlete on a football field because he has been basically his entire life. I don't know if Malik Willis knows how to be a quarterback yet. So it'll be interesting to see how he translates and how he develops. I think he's got the skill set to be really good, but like you said, there's such a low floor on it too because it was sloppy at times. And he was playing for Liberty and all that. It's all kind of crazy. It'll be interesting to see how he pans out. I do like his talent though.
Yeah, it does seem like you're drafting him not for what he is today. If you do draft Malik Willis, I think that's probably that's our teaser on that. I might have a film study coming out about Malik Willis, and maybe even before we do our next podcast. So everyone be on the lookout for that. Yeah, Kyle, that's your show.
That's our show. Let's do it.
All right. Unless you got any final thoughts, I guess we'll just end the show now. Thank you to everybody for watching. Remember, we have the audio only version. Anywhere you get your podcast, you can check that out. Kyle, let them know where they can find us on Twitter right before we head out.
Yeah, make sure to follow us on Twitter. That is at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at @ByKyleGronin. Make sure to follow the account page. That's at On the Sideline JK. That's at On the Sideline JK. As we are now 176 days until the NFL season. We're almost there, folks. We're powering through this offseason. We love it.
March Madness. So much stuff going on. A
lot
of fun.
A bracket?
I filled out a bracket. Yeah, I have. My grandparents went to Kentucky, so I always pick Kentucky to win it all. It hasn't gone well these past few years.
Yeah, I've picked Gonzaga every year.
Okay.
Born and raised in Spokane, so I have to do it until they finally win one. I just need them to win one, then I can die in peace.
I hear you. As a I was 9 when I first saw my team. When I last saw my team win a championship up until the last couple of years. So I said, just give me one, and now I obviously want more because I'm selfish.
Yeah, so I just want to see Gonzaga win one. I'm going to pick them every year till they do. I picked Iowa on the women's side just because I want to watch Caitlin Clark play every game. So that's my incentive for picking Iowa. Just want them to win.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's the good stuff. Maybe we'll do a quick recap of March Madness at the end of the next show. Who knows? But anyways, again, thanks to everyone for watching. We do appreciate it. And until next time, see you later, alligator.
Peace.